to, we saw you at the Herd the
was a
other
cool
week.
event.
And so we go and bring our Oasis copies and share some of those. At the last Zine Fest, we had a pretty interesting panel discussion that we kind of brought together on that Taylor and I
was really
were on.
great,
Taylor was the sort of facilitator and the mastermind, and I was on along with a lot of really talented people from outside of our circle, talking about like what does radical publishing and creation mean in Phoenix, and what is the emancipatory potential of all of our different approaches to art. So that I think was really fun and interesting contribution to Zine Fest, and we hope that we can do more of those. I think last summer, I think I was gone for this, but I think there was sort of a workshop that we did on the Perfect Binder, where people could come to.
Just under a year ago. That was with Wasted Ink as well. Like a zine and book binding workshop. There was I think also about 25 people there of a lot of different ages too, from kids like older people, on how to bind zines with staples or stitch bound them or use a perfect binder. And I think the intention, like the long project, is to sort of have some more space to do that, like more of a community resource. And I think part of the vision of Holum Press is, of course, to invite people who are interested in publishing something but don't know how, or maybe don't have the resources to do so, in knowledge or physical, sort of invite them to, facilitate that.
But do you, as far as the projects that you will facilitate, are you pretty firm about them needing to align with your kind of ethos, or?
I think we're generally interested in publishing voices that are calling from the desert. I think is what we've settled on, like something that's locally specific.
It doesn't need to be material that would belong in an Oasis issue.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
because that's sort of its own thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the good news is that it's not that hard in the Valley to find people with a similar sensibility about these
especially
things who
zinesters.
are in zinesters who are in this community already. So we haven't had to apply like a really rigorous editorial critique. Just in part because the people who come to us are people that probably already align with us on a lot of these things.
Gotcha. Now, as we're kind of like wrapping up here, I did have a question about funding. Like how, as anti-capitalist as you may at heart be, it does cost money to do all of this stuff. And so how over, you guys have been doing this for a couple of years now, right? 2-3 years. How have you
just
found
about
ways to kind of sustain that and be able to continue to do the projects you want to do?
Yeah, well, when we're out tabling, we sell the Oasis issues for money, and that goes in. And but there's also, I think, a sense from all of us that this is not something that we're trying to do to make money.
Profit,
right?
Yeah,
I think it's definitely a hard issue to talk about because it's there's a lot of shame involving money. There's a lot of people want to move away from it, especially if you have leftist ideology.
That'd be fantastic. I'm all for having that kind of utopian, people
Trade
get what they need kind of thing,
Yeah.
And where maybe the arts is given its due and it's shown the import that it really has and the intrinsic value to the human condition, rather than being something that
could generate
gets its
more profit.
funding constantly cut.
Yeah. In our case, it helps to be a relatively big collective. The costs, they're significant, but they're not totally overwhelming when split across a dozen people.
Well, especially if you have your own. I mean, obviously there are materials you
Yeah.
need to keep the perfect binder going and all of that. But once you have the perfect
You have to
binder,
feed it glue sticks.
exactly, yeah. But once you have
Yeah.
it, that's a huge expense out of your way.
So we were very lucky to find that for used for like I think like $200.
That's not bad.
on like Craigslist or something.
Yeah. So most of the times people have just eaten personal expenses, and then we've redistributed the debt like amongst ourselves.
Gotcha.
And I think we typically try to sell things for like as cheap as we think we can just make back what we spent on printing it. And then I think most of the time people, especially in this community, if they're generating their own products themselves, like if they're artists, and they understand that there is value to it, and that by buying a product of art, like that isn't just going to make the artist more rich, but it goes into them for furthering their practice and like furthering their ability to create. So that's, I think, my understanding of our transactions with other people.
Yeah. I'm sure that if we took a really hard look at, who had paid for what over the years, we would find that, it's lumpy, right? But thankfully,
It's a good description.
we aren't a collective that we're trying to think through those issues is really precisely and distribute all the lumps extremely evenly is something we worry about too much, and that's because we're also sort of like lumpy as a group in terms of the resources that we have.
So kind of back to according to the need and ability.
Right.
Yeah.
But is there a thought in there to, pursue nonprofit status, to actually be able to, to apply for some grant funding, or you guys are just going to keep it kind of?
I mean, I think if we had a large project, then we might pursue something like that.
So this is for you guys maybe a mixture of a large vision and a passion project, kind of mixed, maybe, or like how many? Yeah. So how many issues, or how many how many copies of an issue do you initially bind?
About 100.
Yeah,
100?
I think just to speak to the point you just made, I think generally it's like we see the political power of art and the like emancipatory, creative, liberatory like energy of art, and we want to see that and like more space in the valley.
This, I mean, it puts me in mind, in spirit at least, of people distributing leaflets and things, and trying to put things out into the public consciousness in a different way. But you guys are doing this on a larger scale.
I think generally, like if someone wanted a copy and they couldn't pay for it, we would just give it to them. Like I don't think we're like very, like Andrew said, we're not like really strict about accounting. We have one spreadsheet for publishing, not really so much for really, we're not like really into the trying to generate profit kind of side of things.
I mean, the other piece I think is that for all of us, the creation process is, I think, where we derive a lot of the value, right?
Yeah, right.
And getting the opportunity and the inspiration to write things that we probably wouldn't write otherwise. That's really exciting. And I'm really sort of proud of some of the things that I've written, and some of the things that I've written that have ended up getting housed in Oasis specifically, that I may not have originally written for the issue. And that being able to have an ongoing, slow burning effort to that sort of calls you to write something critical about life and capitalism and a couple times a year is just like a good thing to have in your life. And you don't need to be you don't even need a lot of people to read that to feel like you are getting your sort of time's worth being a part of that kind of project.
Getting the the fulfillment out of doing the work itself and putting the thought into it.
It's incredible how fun labor can be when you're not alienated from it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I don't make any money from any of this stuff, but I put more time into it than I put into my day job. So, let's to talk about the new issue and the launch of it and everything. This is the new issue. You said it's the theme and the name of it is Mirage.
Yeah.
And so how did you kind of how does that theme inform the pieces that you both wrote and then took on from the outside, and then let's kind of segue that into like when you guys are launching it and where people can get it and all that kind of thing.
Well, our hope, we have to sort of put an asterisk on this because we haven't 100% confirmed
a little question
the
mark
date.
in parentheses.
Yeah, we've had our wires a little crossed in the last couple of weeks, but our hope is that we can have a launch event on June 8th. Okay. Hopefully at Wasted Ink Zine Distro at
7 p.m.
I could pretty much walk there from here. So
yeah, great,
perfect.
So yeah, that should be the plan. June 8th, 7 p.m. and we'll have some snacks and we'll have some beer, and we'll probably put up some interesting art, and then we'll have some readings from the issue that will hopefully be useful and informative.
And in the past too, those launch parties have been really fun because we've also had pieces specifically just for the launch party.
Nice.
Performances, really.
That you have to be there to experience. You can't get it anywhere else.
Nice.
Yeah, the launch party ends up being a really interesting event, and we always leave after feeling like really inspired and energized to do the next issue.
And some people have attended and then submitted stuff to the
cool.
The next
That's
issue,
another way to figure out whether or not you're a good fit, is to go to the launch party and get the issue and hear what you guys are all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really fun.
So this issue, it's interesting. The issues, I think, kind of like their theme and how strong the theme is and how much it kind of like gathers together all the pieces varies from issue to issue a lot, and what exactly that register is going to be is always kind of an interesting question mark going into each cycle. The second issue that we did, a deep well, was I think probably the tightest on a specific theme. It came out of a series of conversations we had about anxiety as the affect of modern life. And specifically a very interesting piece from I think a British collective called I'm gonna have to look it up. It's been a minute. We Are All Very Anxious, by the Institute for Precarious Consciousness, which is comes out of 2014, but felt very very relevant when we started working on it in 2018, right? Or maybe that was the end of 2017. But so we were all very inspired to do pieces around that theme, and then some of the other themes have emerged from the pieces that ended up. So we kind of went into our third issue thinking that we would do a theme of kind of proliferation, and the pieces that we ended up writing and submitting ended up being very bodily,
very visceral, perhaps.
Very visceral. And so the name of the issue is "Oh Blood Life," which is a line taken from one of the poems in the issue, and that was I think really an interesting process to see that evolve. And then we had for the fourth issue, we had a notion that we maybe wanted to talk a little bit about waste.
That was a little tighter, I think.
That was a little tighter, but I think we sort of picked up the waste theme, and then we're like, well, let's see what we get, and then discovered that the waste theme really did fit. and so the title of that one was Landfill of Advice, which is also a phrase taken from one of the poems